Louise, it's the day we are outside of our comfort zone. There was a guy using a drill upstairs. I had to go tell him kindly to just chill a little bit. And then we had some problems with the television and speaking in English. So I feel that having now you on like a sport psychologist consultant, it's like a good timing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect. So you're our sports psychologist in Sarpsborg.
Yeah.
But we've really never talked about what exactly sports psychology is.
Yeah.
And what you do. So give us some context about what it is and also your journey to becoming a sports psychology consultant.
Right. Well, sports psychology, I would say, is how you train the brain. The brain is a muscle. So it's what sort of tools you need to use as an athlete or a player. And working on those tools in the same length and actually multitude as you would maybe do with the technical training or tactical training or the physical training. And when it comes to sports psychology, they would say that you've got 4 classical tools, which is imagery. You have arousal regulation, you have self-talk, and you would have goal setting. So those are like the 4 classical ones. And besides those, you would have multitudes of other things to work on. It can be self-regulated learning. It can be how to maybe use mindfulness or meditation. So there's so many different ways to work with the mental part, but it's so individual. So it's not like one size fits all, and it sort of always comes from where the player or the individual himself or herself, what their challenges are, or maybe what they want to optimize when working as an athlete, and especially elite sports where the demands are quite high. So my journey started off as actually a teacher, a PE teacher, and then I was asked to work at a sports school for 16 to 19-year-olds, and there I got the role as a physical coach for football players. So I worked with that for 15 years. But during my own journey, had done English, PE, and I'd also done psychology. And then I was offered a job as a sports psychologist at the school I was working in 2015, and that's where the shift started to come in, where I started to focus on the mental part, because for 15 years I've been making programs like strength and conditioning programs for players, but I always realized that it was actually what we have between our ears that decided how much effort we would put into these programs to get the most benefit or some benefit out of it. And I then decided to start for myself in 2016 and have the last 7 years just worked hard and, in a sense, got more athletes who have got in touch because they wanted to perform better, or they wanted to use it as performance enhancement. At the same time, I've also been working at clubs. So it's going from the physical part of it to going over to the mental part. And I think knowing the physical demands that football has, it's a good thing that I've experienced that, because I would recognize, how much effort a pre-season can have or a rehab period could have, and also performing in important matches or during the season, how that can take a toll on the physical part. And therefore, knowing that, it's easier to maybe help the athletes in a better way.
But you work with us as a team, but you also, at the same time, you work on each individual player.
Yep.
or the players that reach out to you and
Yep.
want to have one-on-one consultations. But you also work with players around Europe.
Yes.
Are you allowed to name some of them?
I'm allowed to name some of them. I think I have players in 10 or 11 different leagues now. Trying to remember the last transfer window. But I would have, I can talk about the ones who've openly expressed that they work with a sports psychology consultant. So I have Christopher Ayer, who's in Brentford. I would work with Jørgen Strand Larsen, who's in Celta Vigo. Tobias Heinz I worked a lot with Lasse B. Jonsen, who's in Malmö at the minute. I also work with a young player who's in the Bayern Munich academy called Matteo. And I also have players in other Eliteserien clubs here in Norway, I think in 4 other clubs. Work with Bris in Bodø Glimt, and some others around here and there.
How is the logistics just around you working with them? Is it busy? Do they call you at any time of the day, night, morning? Is it over FaceTime, or how do you work with them that maybe live abroad or in a different area of the country that you're not so close to?
Well, the funny thing is, like, I work with Sondre Tronstad. I've been working with him, I think, for 3 years now. He's in Blackburn at the moment, and I've never met him in person. Never met him in person. I've never met Lasse in person.
Okay.
And I've also worked with him for, I think it's the 3rd season now. And that's just due to, I think a lot of the customers actually reached out as well during COVID, so it was a very normal way to work online. And in that sense, I think maybe that's my strong side, is that I can build up a very trustworthy relationship quite quick, even though it's through the screen. But I'm looking forward to the day I meet them in real person and give them a proper good hug. But yeah, it is hectic. I have no days off. That's maybe an exaggeration. I had 3 days off last year and 4 days off this year. But it's because I always have players who are in season, and when they're not in season, we have transfer windows. And my experience is that during the transfer windows, it's maybe the most vulnerable time, actually, for a lot of players, because it's gaining that confidence that the job you've done through the season has been worth enough that somebody wants to come and get you. So, and I think for a lot of them, it's good to talk to somebody who's outside the club, outside what has to do with agents, maybe be allowed to talk about things that they don't always want to discuss with family members. So sort of maybe having a more of a neutral person to talk to. So
good. So what do you think is the best and worst thing about being a sports psychologist?
Well, I think I would need to blame myself for the worst thing, because the worst thing is I would maybe struggle to actually block out my own feelings and emotions when I know that players that I work with are going through tough times and they're vulnerable. I would maybe tap into their vulnerability. And that would maybe at times be a bit much to carry. If I know they're frustrated, I would help them sort out their frustration. But then when we say, right, see you next time, close the laptop, and I'd be going, frustrated on their behalf. So I think I would blame the worst part on myself for maybe not being mentally resilient enough at times, and just calling it a job. But then in another sense, I think the most beneficial part is, we would call it altruistic egoism. It's how I get to join in on the journey of athletes and see them grow and see how they develop and see how they take steps. And in a sense, know that maybe some of the advice that I've given them has helped them to take those steps. But it's also in the small details that I feel blessed nearly to be able to work with people in that manner, because I get to know about proposals, I get to know about expecting to becoming parents, get to know about things that are quite private to them, but they want to share it with me. So just knowing that actually I maybe know it before the grandparents know it, or I actually know that the proposal's coming before other significant others do, it's just a lovely part of the job.
You have a great memory of, because we've been working a bit together as well.
Yeah.
I remember I had it was a tough period in my personal life before we played Viking last season, and I remember just having a chat to you that day.
Yeah.
And that helped me get through that day and then do a good performance against Viking away last season. And I think if I were you then, to see then, even if it was not me, but to then see a player that you talked to before, he performs and have a good, like, he did what he wanted to do and he wasn't blocked by his mental state. And I think that must be rewarding.
Very. It's very rewarding. But I always work from a holistic point of view because, you know, I was proud of your performance against Viking, but I was more, see, I'll get emotional about this, see, that's the downside about it, but I was more proud of your way of handling it as an individual, like a person. And I think a lot of people don't understand actually the lengths that players or athletes would push themselves to in obtaining their goals and how uncomfortable things can be at times with the pressure. Because a lot of people think that, oh, they get paid for it, it's easy, you know, they're just going out there playing football. But the demands and the hardship of being in elite sport, I think, you know, I have such a high respect of people who push themselves to the extent that they do in sports where you go to work every single day and you're measured and evaluated by yourself, teammates, coaches, significant others, and you always have to perform. Like, I can go to work and have a bad day at the office and it won't really affect that many. But my career doesn't depend on whether I have a bad day or 2 or 3. Like, I think a lot of players, when they go through tough phases, they've got this pressure that it has to do with my career. And the football career is such a short career compared to any other careers you may have in the walk of life. So I think for me, watching you during that Viking match after we'd had our talk, it was more like a proud moment, not of your performance, but of you as a person, how you handled that.
Yeah, it also as an athlete, you know, when you then acknowledge that you just need someone to push a few buttons and just help you through it, then you see how rewarding it is and how important your role is in football. And you see around Europe and in the world in general that it's taken more and more seriously, the mental aspect of sports. I remember reading that the Bayern Munich players, they had like stuff placed on their heads to measure how they were before the final in the Champions League. So I think people are of course like waking up to how important this is. Yeah,
and I think elite sports, like everything's become quite like, how can we say, there's so little left to chance, and the equipment you can get to enhance the physical performances, the programs you can get to do the tactical aspects of the game and how you present those. And I think when it also comes to the mental part of the game, that's where you can find the few percentage to, you know, gain. If you work with that, if you work with your mind and your mental training, but it has to be sort of a dedication to it. And I think a lot of people would come and seek help when things are going wrong, instead of maybe having that mindset of, okay, if I ask for help because I want it to be performance enhancement, I want to find where I can get these few percent in advantage to maybe other players who don't work with it. And that's because, like, elite sport has become so professional on like every single thing. And I also think that's maybe as well why there's been a shift in the trend of who has like sports psychologists or sports psychology consultants in their clubs, because they realise that, okay, this is what we need to work on.
Because before there was always that you read in the newspaper, if there was a team that was close to relegation, they are bringing in a mental coach. Yeah. So it's associated with...
Talk about pissing on the fire.
It's like associated with something...
Negative.
Something negative, and it's not proactive, but it's something that you just need fixing there and then. Yeah. And then it's also easy that you who work with this also get this label that you're always brought in when shit hits the fan.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So I think that's also maybe been an obstacle to get over, so that clubs can understand that it's really necessary to have it when it goes bad, but also when things are going well, to gain even more edges.
Yeah, because I think like before there was an existing stigma regarding like help seeking, and I actually did some research on that the last 2 years on how the shift is there for younger players, that it doesn't have to be a problem if you actually work with a sports psychology consultant. It doesn't mean that anymore. But for the older generation, it meant that you would have mental problems, or you need a shrink or psychiatrist, that it had to do something with what we would call ill health and not good health. So when it comes to being proactive in the working, I think we're so much further along the road now. I think that there's a greater understanding that we do it because we actually want to be better. And it's very in line with what I see with the best players I work with compared to maybe the second best, because the best players I work with, we'd be in touch weekly, and we would talk about how things are going in like practice during the week, and then we would tap in at the very end to what the game, who they're going to meet, what's being expected from your tasks, etc. So the best players come when things are going well, and also when we need to do adjustments. But those players who I would say would be the second best players are those who come when they're struggling. But we've got so much to learn from periods when things are going well. So why did this go well? So if I have a player who contacts me and talks about, maybe it could be with self-confidence or lack of self-confidence or motivation, I would listen to them for a while, and then I would say, okay, well, describe a period in your career so far when things have been going well. Let's feed on that. Let's feed on what did you do correctly when things were going well. How can we build on regaining that control instead of putting out the fires? Because, we need to go back to the basics. What did I do? When it functions, how do I go back to that in everyday practice?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm a victim there of sometimes turning to you more when it's not going so well.
Do you see me kicking you under the table there?
So I'm not sitting here and being this model athlete, but of course I work on like my mental game every week. I have a good relationship with it, and I have notes from way back where I noted why I was performing well and what's been the challenges this time. So I think it's really important that athletes hear that they must not only come when it goes south, but also when things are going well, and also why does it go this way and why does it go well at the moment. So
I remember challenging you on that, saying, come on, Anders, get in touch before. Next time, before. You're like, yeah.
And then the same trap. But if we look just for a small second away from sports, like here at Verdi Media, they are salespersons. Is there something that's translatable from sports and into the finance or normal work life for people that maybe want to be better at work or whatever? Do you work with people that's outside of sports?
Yes, I've done that as well. I think one of the main things would be to control what's within your control. Often I think we need to accept dynamics at the workplace where we are. So if it has to do with performance, like in form of sales or how many sales one has, or if it has to do with finance where you need to be up your game all the time to get the best benefits, I think you need to accept the dynamics of where you're working instead of fighting them. Because often we can feel that this is demanding, this is stressful, and we often then become emotionally detached or attached to what's going on. And we've got like the emotional psychology and we've got the cognitive psychology, but often we lead ourselves based on how we feel and how our emotions are. And even though we do have what we call like the production of stress hormones, we go to feeling, I feel stress, or I feel relaxed, or we go to, I feel I have self-confidence, I feel that I lack self-confidence. So it's often getting this understanding of, am I emotionally attached to what's going on now? And can I maybe put on the brake a bit and distance myself from that and go to, okay, so what are the thoughts that triggers these feelings? How can I become cognitively driven to what's within my control compared to emotionally havoc at times? You know, it feels like, I would say we feel like we're in quicksand, that we're being pulled down. So how can I get the footing again to control what's within my abilities? So getting that understanding, am I emotional now? Or can I go over to some way of being driven by thoughts that are controllable and the value of the words that I use in those? Because I remember you, if I can share this, you'll cut it out if you can't.
Sure.
I remember you calling me one time on the way back from practice, and I was in the car, and you said, listen, I feel a bit uncertain because I held back on, when I did the 5 meters today, I held back. And I said, but have you not had a problem with your groin? And you said, yeah. And I said, we've got a match tomorrow, so are you uncertain or were you smart? And you said, well, I was smart. And I said, well, okay, goodbye then. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So it's what sort of value the words we use have. Are we always falling short of our self-talk, which is one of the mental tools? Am I falling short? Am I looking at where I don't succeed or where I don't have control? Because if we're looking at things where we don't have control, we end up asking thousands of questions, and those questions just give us more insecurity, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-efficacy. So in a sense, we're just pulling ourselves down emotionally based on the values of the words we use. So it's taking control of it, trying to turn it into positives. And I don't mean like this perfect world, but it has to be realistic. But can I use other words when I work through stressful periods? So I could use perspective thinking. Okay, it's stressful now, but how long is this going to be stressful? Okay, it's out until the weekend. So this week it's going to be hard. So I accept it's going to be hard. That means I need to dig a wee bit deeper. Okay, so if I know this is going to be hard, I can still manage. I believe in myself enough that I can still manage. I'll be tired in the evenings. I'll be tired when I get up, but I know I still can get my work done. So instead of going, oh my goodness, this week's going to be so stressful, I don't know how I'm going to do it, I won't be able to manage this, you know, I'm in over my heads. Okay, well, good luck with that week then. So it's, okay, what is the value in the words we use?
So if you would give like a practical advice, there's let's say there's a salesman here at Verdi Media, and he's been having either a tough week before, or he's had a great week. But this is something that they can do. Okay, Sunday evening, Monday is coming up. Is there any practical stuff they can do to prepare them for the week coming up?
Well, I would do the same, like I would say to my athletes, and it's what we call self-regulated learning. So I would look at the coming week, I would see, okay, what sort of things are the priorities to do? What is it I have to do that has to be done? And maybe write up what is my priority number 1, 2, and 3 for Monday that I have to do. Okay, when those are done, if I have extra time, what else can I do afterwards? And maybe have 1 or 2 things. And then if they aren't done, the last 2 or 3 things, if they're not done, okay, well, we put them into Tuesday. Because you can only do one thing at a time, and that's why we practice mindfulness also at the club. It's being present in the given moment. But if you wake up and go, your heart's beating and racing, it's Monday, oh shit, I've got so much to do, and you're bringing that stress into the quality of work that you're doing, it will be impaired, it won't be as good. So, okay, I need to do one thing at a time. And it's exactly the same as with athletes. We can only do one thing at a time, and it's solve the task that is in front of you in the best possible way. So do that with high quality. And the thing is, if I think where we fail as human beings is that when we go to bed for the night, we think about all the things we didn't do. It's like, shit, didn't get that done. Oh, Pete's sake, didn't get that done. Instead of going to bed and looking at, okay, so what did I actually achieve today? I actually got 2 kids to school, had time to brush my teeth. And it's in the small, mundane things that we actually forget to appreciate what we do. If I go to bed and look at what I've done, I should actually be quite chuffed. But instead we go thinking about tomorrow already, instead of saying, this is what I was able to do today. Okay, I should have done those 2 last things. Well, I'll put them in for tomorrow. So it's taking control over the controllable. It's doing the self-regulated learning, because when we put it in towards tasks, we don't have to get emotionally attached to it. It's when we get emotionally attached to things, that's when we can down spiral, because it becomes overwhelming. So, and be a bit generous with yourself. Goodness sake, we're only human beings. You know, if you try your best, you try your best.
Amazing advice. I think also then bringing that stuff, what you said now about being stressed and overwhelmed, I think I would have benefited. Like I did like meditation. We are like the Headspace
Yep.
app. When I had my move to Belgium.
Yep.
But I didn't have these practical tools that could help me maybe calm a bit more down, because I remember I just have a small story. I had since I had a newborn, and my family was staying here in Norway, in Sarpsborg, before my move to Belgium. So I remember I had like get a house, get a car. It needed to be a good place to live because of kindergarten, school, and everything close to. And then on top of that, I had to learn how it was in a new club, new language, new coaches, new players to learn and get to know. So I think I remember like I waking up in the morning before going to practice, this anxiety or stress that I had this for I think 6 months waking up, and I think if I had these practical tools, that would maybe detach me a bit from the situation, and I could see on paper that like to have something to lean on, and this is what I should focus on, and this, and then the rest we take as it comes. I think I would enjoy that time more than I did. So I think I would love to have learned this a bit earlier, but I think there you can also see the power of taking it seriously.
Yeah, and I think often when we see players go from one club to another, and usually you're brought somewhere because you have an X factor and you've been one of the best on the team that you've left. A lot of players don't realise that there is a natural adaption time, and it can be everything from 3 to 6 months. And a lot of players who've been in the starting 11 like forever go to a new club. And my job is to prepare them for, okay, so how long would you think it's realistic for you to start on the bench? It's like, start on the bench? Yeah, because that's what we actually need to be ready for. It's like, okay, I'll start thinking about it. Okay, maybe I'll give it 3 months. Okay, so how are you going to use those 3 months? Because straight away, if we're not realistic in how we evaluate the situation we're in, we're sort of setting us up for a fall. And then when we fall, we become vulnerable. And using this adaptation period actually to be generous with yourself and how you use your self-talk and how you reduce the stress levels in your body. Because when we stress, like our neuromuscular system will have enhanced arousal. So it means it'll be more tense, and what we think is a natural touch, like 10 out of 10 times when things are fine, suddenly the ball goes everywhere. And being aware of what's happening and being generous with yourself and realizing how you use your self-talk, because we want to come into a club and we want to prove that we deserve to be bought, we deserve that the coach plays as we deserve, suddenly that our new teammates are all going to stand with open arms. You know, that is so not realistic, because you're coming in as a contestant to a place and somebody's going to want to stab you in the back, and we need to be aware of these dynamics. So being mentally prepared for hardship, because you know, as most athletes, the world's easiest thing to do is to be a football player when you're in the flow. You know, it doesn't, there is no effort to it. But building mental resilience is what you do when things are tough. So how do I navigate out of this? How can I navigate through leading myself? Okay, I need to go to the self-regulated learning. I need to make sure that I have a plan for this training session, not necessarily on the demands of what everyone else wants or expects, but what's important for me to feel that even though I'm maybe not in the starting 11, that I feel that I'm developing as an athlete and also controlling what's going on the outside. So how can I, through every single, because 90% of your career, up to 95% of your career, and it's a scientist called McCann who looked at it, will be in training. So it's only 5 to 10% that is in competition or a match. But we often just evaluate ourselves for matches and not training. And I think that's maybe the best tip that I've given athletes that I work with, you know, let's focus on the training week.
What you say there about self-regulated learning and those parts, I had the question yesterday from one of my followers, how could they get this inner belief in themselves and confidence in themselves without outside factors, and I think they maybe mean by they don't need to get praised all the time from coaches or teammates or whoever, but how they can build like their own inner belief and really stick to it even when things are going wrong, and this is maybe parts of it.
Yeah, I think it's very important that listeners understand that self-confidence is a feeling. Okay, so I feel I have high confidence, I feel I have low self-confidence. So it's a feeling. Self-belief is something else. Self-belief, and go back to self-confidence. Self-confidence will always be affected by situation and results. So lack of results, your self-confidence might go down. And situations that you're set in, maybe it's against an important opponent or it can be an important game. If we're going to then a self-confidence, that will actually be, in a sense, adjusted by the situation we're in. While when it comes to self-belief or self-imagery, it's really important that the listeners understand that that is how you view yourself. Lack of context. So we don't look at the context. These are my values. This is what I think about myself, no matter which situation I'm in. So an example is, I nearly failed in math and German at school. Okay, so my motivation and self-confidence when it came to maths and German, extremely low. So I could sit in the classroom and feel like didn't understand, have a clue what was going on. Then I could go out of a classroom where we were having German, and because I'm British or I loved PE, I could go into an English session or lesson, and my self-confidence peaked, and so did my motivation. So even though I'm the same person, it's a situation that decides how much confidence I have. Okay? So, but then again, when it comes to self-belief or self-imagery, it has to do with these are the values I have for myself that nobody can take away from me, no matter the situation I'm in. And I would love for individuals out there to understand that those have to be strengths that you feel or know you have despite, and it's not to do in relation with others. So if I ask somebody about the strengths, they say, well, I'm a good listener, I'm a caring person, I'm selfless. But that's how we want the world to portray us. That's what we want to feel that we give the world. It has to do with what do I give myself, no matter. And it's not being self-centered, but it's knowing that, okay, I can stand in a shitstorm. I actually can be in situations that are uncomfortable because I'm hardworking, I'm dedicated, I'm honest, and find out what things are valuable to you. So just make sure that people out there know the difference between self-confidence and self-imagery. Okay, because that's extremely important.
Amazing. So let's say there's a player that is going to play a Premier League game.
Yeah.
On a Saturday evening. How do you work with this player? Or how does he maybe like to work on the day to maybe be prepared for what's coming later in the game? Is it only the work leading up during the week, or is there also some fine-tuning the day off or maybe the day before a game?
It's usually the day before a game, and then, yes, as you say, we would look in hindsight at what we've been, or he or her have been doing during the week. And then when we look at the match that's going to come, okay, what challenges or what is important to do tomorrow? What would be important to do tomorrow? Okay, well, I've got this type of player I'm meeting. I know these are his strengths. I need to make sure that I'm smart when it comes to this, that I've got control of that. It can be perception and orientation. It can be being on the right foot. It can be like quick into the tackles, whatever it is. But these are the tasks that I need to do. Okay, and then I would say, so what's plan B? And plan B is that we can actually, because a lot of both young athletes and older athletes would be scared to make mistakes. But if you go onto a football pitch, the whole dynamic of football itself is actually getting one team to make more mistakes than you do. So if we go out there scared of making mistakes, we're actually just shooting ourselves in the foot, because that is going to happen. So plan B is, okay, what happens if you don't succeed at your plan A? And that has to do with how you then own your own reaction. You don't become emotionally attached to maybe making an assessment that you weren't happy with or an action that you weren't happy with. So you don't go over then to become emotional. You know that, okay, my plan B is if that happens, okay, it's either creating a new space or denying a new space based on who has the ball. So also having plan B ready means that, okay, I'm ready to do it. And then I would always say, and I would always text all my players that I work with individually on the day of a match, I would say, enjoy yourself. Because when we know we've done the work during the whole week, we can play with freedom and we can work on instinct and intuition. And we need to trust those. I saw that reel today with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and it was so funny because I was talking to some other guys earlier on that day when it came to trusting those thousands of hours that you've had with the ball. Just trust yourself. Will it be comfortable, or will it be, will it go the way you hope for? I think there's a better chance for that, and if you go out with the thought that I don't want to make mistakes. So being bold, or having a mindset where, okay, this is actually what I've trained for. And I've noticed you also said that as well, that I wish I earlier on enjoyed match days.
Yeah, because especially up until 28, 29 maybe, the match day was only a day that I wanted to pass. It was like, just don't fuck up today. And then after I would be happy and relieved in the dressing room. Often more relieved than anything. Just that I didn't have the bad feeling of having made a mistake and all the scrutiny and all the criticism and all that stuff. I wouldn't have to deal with that the next week, leading up to a new game. And that's also the message I want to portray to, also with my content, that I want like the new talents and the younger people, and also seasoned pros that maybe follow me, that to enjoy the game more, because it also help you perform even better. But also, like, this is also like a really normal question I get, is like around mistakes, like especially as goalkeepers, like having like to do a mistake normally leads to a goal. And then it's like, how do you remain confident, and how do you get over the mistake? Because we can drop the ball between our legs after 1 minute, and then you still have to play 90 plus the added time. But I guess, as you say, it's the preparation you do with the athletes the day before, the plan B, and then also have something that snaps you back into the now during the game. And I can say that I have this, that I focus on my breathing.
Good.
3 times. Only focus on that. We have talked about this, and then I just see where's the striker at the other team, and then I start communicating, and that's the sort of tools I use to bring myself back into the moment, even if it's something bad happened just a minute before. So then preparing the day before, and then maybe have tools for yourself to bring you back to the present is a recipe.
Yeah, I would say that, and it's also very individual. It can be a sentence that you say to yourself, but the main goal is not to become emotionally attached, because, as I said, self-confidence is an emotion. So I would often say, deal with it later. Like, just wait, deal with it later. Because what you can do then when you go back into the locker room, or when you sit down, when you come home, and a lot of people would want to watch their match again, is, okay, where's the learning in this? Okay, what am I going to take with me that I'll build on, that I'm happy with, of my performance? And which adjustments would I do if I had this match one more time? So if I had this match one more time, what would I have done differently? Because in that sense, we can go to get the learning out, because we're always looking for the learning. And I think, like, learning from both what we're happy with and what we feel we succeeded with, enhance that. And it's at the same time look at, okay, which adjustments would I have done? How would I have solved that differently? Because the thing is, when you give most likely most athletes would know what type of adjustments they would want to do straight away. And that means you've got the competence. So it's going back to, I know what I've done correct, and I know what I would have done as an adjustment. Okay, well, let me go through another training week. But getting to that point where you love the game or game day, just, I think if you're able to crack that code, I think you just enjoy doing sports so much more, because it's got to do with when you started. Most people, except Tebo, started as a kid, playing football. And I think you need to sort of trust how you've learnt to play football during, like, the whole journey that you've been on, and just trust those hours.
But also regarding mistakes, do you think we dread mistakes so much? Is it because of the feelings attached to it, or do you think it's maybe the repercussions from the surroundings, maybe lose your spot in the team, or getting criticism, or is it just like the feeling of making the mistake and how it makes you feel with that it creates so much?
Well, I think that would be quite I think that would quite differ, like, individually.
From athlete to athlete.
Yeah, because, and I said that to you when I arrived at Sarpsborg. I said, when I looked at that room and there were, I think, 20 or 28 different players, and I introduced myself and I said, not one of you are at the same spot in your journey. So we've got 28 individuals here, and nobody's at the same place, not one of you. And I think it has to do also with that some people can handle a mistake in a better manner than others. It's always in context with prior experiences. So it can be that you've made a mistake earlier on or had some involvements that you're not happy with, and that has meant that you've cut from the team. You've been cut from the starting 11. Okay, so if you feel you make a mistake, you'll go to what it was like before. Oh, last time I did that, a couple of times I actually lost my spot on the team. So it has to do with what you've gone through before, but as human beings, like in any level and wherever we are in life, nobody likes to make mistakes. You know, making mistakes is uncomfortable, but I also think it's extremely important that we learn, and that's why I'm back to self-regulated learning. Okay, so the repercussions might mean that I do lose my spot, but how am I? Because you'll never succeed. It's not your coach who decides if you succeed. It's not your teammates who decide if you succeed. It's how you handle when things go well and when things go shit. That's how you succeed. Okay, do I look at myself as a victim of my mistake? Or do I think, okay, what can I learn from my mistake so I can be proactive?
Good. We often speak about mental toughness. You hear maybe Roy Keane say on Match of the Day that they are not tough enough and they are snowflakes that Solskjaer told. And, you know, we often hear this term getting thrown around, mental toughness, they're not tough enough. But what do you think mental toughness is?
For me, mental toughness is being resilient. And being resilient is how do I deal with hardships. And I think you're extremely naive if you think you can go through a football career and not experience hardships. So it has to do with building character. It has to do with a form of honesty with yourself. We often go to, when things get tough, we can end up going to shame blaming, that we would blame everyone else. But for me, mental toughness is mental resilience. How do I lead myself through difficult times? So, and I think that's why one of the values you should hold quite close to yourself is honesty. Have I done actually what is demanded of me this week? Or have I left too much up to chance? Have I been accurate in the things I should be accurate on? Have I done my mental training? I've done my physical, tactical and physical, but have I done my mental training? And I think using, again, perspective thinking as a tool, okay, if I pull myself out and look at the bigger picture, so, okay, say I go back 2 weeks, maybe I have to go back 2 months. What have I done that I could have done better? So I think mental toughness has to do that you don't go into the role of being a victim of your circumstances. And in today's society, good luck with that. Like seriously, I've been working with teenagers since 2002, so 21 years. Oh my goodness, I'm old. But for 21 years, I've been working with teenagers, and the shift I see in young teenagers' minds in how they would often, not always, but often portray themselves as the victims. Yeah, we won't have a lot of resilient grown-ups in a couple of decades. No, but I think it's like a social challenge in today's society, actually building mental resilience. And it doesn't mean, and it's really important that I stress this as well, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have a good day and put your hand up and say, I'm having a bad day. You're allowed to do that. But it also has to be with look inward instead of blaming everyone else outward. So, and I think maybe that's hopefully what some of my athletes appreciate is my tough love. Like I would have an athlete who calls and he's like slagging off the coach, and I would go, right, are you done? You know, are you going to change him? No. So why are you using energy? Slagging him off, you know, shift your focus back to you. So sort of a loving kick up the ass.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you're touching on there. I think being a victim doesn't get you anywhere. I think, of course, you're gonna have like a weak moment where you blame everything, but I think deep down you know that you're in control of this and how you behave and how you are as a human being, how will I be in training tomorrow? Will I be a guy that gives energy to my teammates and to the club and to the staff, or will I be a guy that sucks it out? And how will I train today? Will I just take this bad emotion and this victim mentality and bring it into my training? And normally it's just a downward spiral. And I think during my toughest moments and tough moments during my career, there's many times I haven't been wanting to go to training, or because you've been feeling sorry for yourself or whatever, but I've always ended up, okay, now I'm at training, so let's just do these two things properly.
Good.
Doesn't need to be anything more, and what comes after lunch, okay, so be it. But now, and always, if you then you train well and you've done what you said to yourself, then you stack these wins that have, you stack a win that day, and then maybe after lunch, okay, you go home and rest, and maybe I go for a run. You stack another day, and then you maybe have a healthy meal. And then if there's something your wife asked you to do and you actually do it, it's another win. And then
happy
suddenly,
wife, happy life.
But then suddenly you build momentum. And you get away from this victim mentality, and you see that you are in control of this.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Anders. It's regaining that control of a situation. But it's also very important that your followers understand that motivation is also a feeling. So I feel highly motivated, I feel low, or I feel low motivated, or whatever. Just lost my mother tongue there. But I feel motivated, or I don't feel motivated. That is a feeling. And the thing is, when you describe your situation there, where you didn't feel motivated to go into work, your dedication was there. So dedication is so much easier to control because it's not a subjective feeling, it's our actions and what we do. So often you would see young athletes talking about how highly motivated they are, and then they go to bed late on the weekends, maybe not making the wisest choice when it comes to meals, maybe skipping over a physical session, so they're not motivated to do that. They're not dedicated to do that, but their feeling is that they're still highly motivated. The thing is, like, I'm a mother of two. I am never, ever, ever, ever motivated to make a meal, to make dinner. Hate standing in the kitchen, and I'm never motivated to go to the grocery store and buy in food, but I am solely dedicated to my children, so I would do it every day, even though I'm not motivated. So dedication is your actions, motivation is your feelings. So make sure that you don't trust your motivations. Try and notice how dedicated you are despite of how you're feeling.
True. I think there will be a lot of valuable information here for the listeners. It's really, really good.
That's good.
But is there like any common stressors or mental challenges that the players or athletes you coach or help come to you with? Is there something that's normal, something that maybe many of them encounter?
Well, the ones that I work with who might be in the highest, European level, a number of them delete their apps, social media apps. Some do it for a couple of days and then allow themselves to binge one day. I have a couple who have gone totally off X or Twitter, whatever it was called before. And that's because it's just noise. And the thing is, we would sometimes use these social media to enhance, again, our feeling of confidence. I would hope people, when they use, like you do, use your social media, it's to help, aid and guide. That's when I feel it's useful. But then again, when it comes to football, there will always be people who will slag you off no matter how your performance is. So some of them distance themselves from social media. Quite a number of my players don't read newspapers or the news on their phone. That would be one thing. And I think as I found in the research that I did, how they deal with performance enhancement, mental tools on the pitch have helped safeguard their mental health off. So they used, when they got in touch with a sports psychology consultant, they were taught certain tools to use, and they used those on the pitch, but then they realised that they could also implement them outside of the pitch to become maybe more resilient, to be able to focus on what's important and let other things that aren't so important go. And that enhanced the quality of being a boyfriend or a husband or father, because they were able to enjoy more being in those roles and it not being so affected of how did it go at work today.
This leads actually well into another thing that's a big part of sports, that's injuries. And injuries, mental health, when you don't have anything to look forward to at the weekend. You're not training with the team. Normally it's crazy how fast you can play the Sunday, and the Monday you're like an outcast. How is it to work with athletes that are injured, and because I guess it's a kind of maybe different way of working maybe, or
well, I would say injury time in acceptance lies peace, and I think that's really important when you come to a situation where you are injured. If you fight against it instead of accepting it, so every time you fight against it, you're releasing stress hormones into your body. And when you release stress hormones into your body, it actually ruins the recovery and actually the rehabilitation. So it's reducing the stress by accepting the situation you're in. A lot of research, there's this a study that was looked upon which mental tools we can use in a rehab period, and they fell on 3 different. So I would always say that to players who are injured, that, okay, you can't be on the pitch now, but you can still be on the pitch. And they go, what? And I say, okay, how are we going to put yourself onto the pitch? For the first thing, we can start with imagery or visualization. So either you decide to watch some of your own football that you've played during a match, or you watch someone who inspires you, okay? You add up that time, if it's 6 minutes or 60 minutes. So you decide to watch a whole match where you, from an analytical point of view, follow someone or yourself for 90 minutes. That's you 90 minutes on the pitch. Because when we work in that manner and then maybe put on visualization or imagery afterwards, we actually have a muscular activation. So we're working with the same nerve system that we do when we're actually playing it. And this will help the blood flow in our body. It will help the areas, and you can actually visualize as well the areas that are injured to increase the blood flow to this. So this meta-study looked at visualization and imagery tied up with analysis. It looked at meditation and mindfulness, and it also looked at goal setting. How do I take, okay, say it's a 6-month period. If we're going to look at the 6 months, it's a long time. Okay, so I'll look at this week. What's important for this week? Okay, I'm bedridden at the moment. I'm going to be in bed. Okay, will it help me thinking about all the things I can't do? No, I'm at bed. Okay, well, I'll use time then to look at games, analyze games. I can talk to the coach about what I need to improve on when I come back. And then we work, okay, so we're from bedridden to we're going to walk on crutches for 4 weeks. Okay, how do we work through that? Upper body strength. Okay, how do I go upper body strength, or how do I do rehab on the leg or what ankle, whatever it is? And how do I see increasement per session? Okay, so we're taking control over something. And it's small steps. It's just like you said, it's stacking the small wins. But if we're going to be stuck in fighting against that, we got that injury. So we're fighting in the past and it's affecting the present that we're in, and we're stressing about the future. So those 3 things is what I would work with when it comes to people in rehab.
So it's not just about being reactive to the situation, but it's also being proactive and actively knowing that I'm in control and just work from there.
Well, you probably remember like when you had your operation, you know, the feeling of being allowed, giving a thumbs up, you're allowed to jog today. Woo!
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're allowed to jog today, you're allowed to do this today, or now we're going to increase the weightlifting. It's those small victories.
Yeah, it's crazy that you remember last season when I tore my ligament
Yeah.
in the thumb. And I remember you saw me in the dressing room right after it happened.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's okay, you
Yeah.
know. And you thought to yourself, yeah, you just wait. And then I remember you calling you from the couch at home. I was so
Yeah.
tired mentally that
Yeah.
I didn't want to get out,
No.
to get up, you know, because there's also this grief.
Yeah.
Because you're missing out on the
Yeah.
games, you're not with the team, you're not traveling with the team. You see them happy together after a win, and you're just laying there on the couch, you know. You can't do anything about it, but still, there's a grief period there as well.
And I think we need to, again, be generous with ourselves. But as you said, then you suddenly became a victim of your circumstances. Okay, so you went to victim mentality. But I think we have to be allowed to go through grievance when it comes to injury. And I think, and again, in acceptance lies peace, accepting the situation as quickly as possible, and also accepting, okay, it will be 6 months, but there will also be shit days. But I'm going to focus on also making sure that I hold on to those small victories that you talked about, Anish. But that generosity towards yourself, it's so funny because this has to do with self-talk. So if you had a colleague going through a rough time, you would know how to guide that colleague or how to encourage that colleague. And you would find the right words to say, or if you felt the colleague was, you know, taking shortcuts, you would say to that colleague, you know, come on, get yourself together, you know, pull your act together. And then when it comes to how we speak to ourselves, goodness gracious, we have this tendency to just go into the boxing ring, and how we dare speak to ourselves, especially in moments where we might be vulnerable and we're just like, it's so crap, I'm so lousy, I'm never going to be able to do this, why can't I fix this? You know, so I often say, think of a significant other who is dear to you, because when we have significant others who are important to us and where there is a trusting relationship, we can also have demands, you know, like I say, pick yourself up, come on. But make sure that we have about 50 to 80,000 thoughts during a day. Try to notice what your self-talk is like. Do you batter yourself up? Are you able to have the ability to talk to yourself as you would talk to a really good friend? Because that's where the key is.
I think me personally, I'm really bad there. I get really mean with myself. Like my self-talk is really bad. So that's something I try to be conscious of and talk. Okay, how would I tell my son Luca at home?
I know.
If he was in the same situation. So I try to talk to myself as I would to Luca.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because, as you say there, I think it's really common that we just beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And the stuff we say to ourselves, we would never dare to say to anyone else.
We wouldn't. It's so strange.
So I think that's really, really key for those who is listening as well. Like, be more kind to yourself, because I think how you speak to yourself and also guides you for the rest of the stuff that you want to do.
And it has to do with self-respect. Like, how do you think the rest of the world, why do you expect the rest of the world to respect you if you actually don't respect yourself? And how do you, you know, if you do actually have good self-respect, you actually carry yourself differently in situations? Well, I do choose to respect myself. And it doesn't mean you're supposed to be an arrogant asshole or anything like that. It just has to mean that as I'm back to, okay, what is my self-worth, self-belief? What is my self-image? What do I have that are strengths that I want to keep for me no matter what situation I'm in? And I think having that self-respect is extremely important. But again, self-respect doesn't mean that you can't hold yourself accountable. It's that, okay, that wasn't good enough today. I need to do better. I want to aim to be better.
Like mental health in sports. It's like really highlighted at the moment. How is the division there in your work? How, because you are like working with athletes and footballers to enhance performance, but how is there? How much also is it to watch after their mental health? What do you do if there's a guy that really struggles mentally with whatever reason he's doing that for?
I think it's, again, very individual. I have worked with athletes who self-harm themselves. I have worked with athletes who have contemplated suicide. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I've worked with athletes who have eating disorders. And I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I would always then say to them that I'm so happy that they come and want to talk about things, but I would then, with their acceptance, because I work under confidentiality, so with their acceptance, I would get them in contact with the right people who can help them on things like that. And mental health, the definition of mental health, so you've got the World Health Organization who came with a definition of mental health in 2015, and then we have one that came in sports in 2020. It was Kuttel and Larsen who came with that, which is that athletes are able to how was it stated? Athletes are able to reach their potential, have meaningful, trustworthy relationships, and function on and off the pitch. So that was like the definition of good mental health. I think it's often wanting to know if it has to do with performance anxiety compared to anxiety, or if it has to do with stressors that affect them full-time off the pitch. A question I often would ask to try and find out would be, do you sleep at night? Because sleep is often an indicator of how we're doing, because the moment we fall asleep is the moment that we fall out of thought. So the ability to fall out of thought is a good indicator. If you get, I would never stress about sleep, because we will have periods that are good or bad with sleep, but if you go over a longer period of time with not too good sleep quality, that would be an indicator. But I also often ask, do you sleep well?
So there will be cases where you manage to help them, but there will also be cases where you say that you might send them forward to someone that is maybe more specialized in that part of mental health. Yeah,
because things can come up, like when I stress very seldom when people come and talk about that they're not motivated, but my trigger warning would be if they say they're not dedicated, if they're skiving off training, or they're finding ways to not have to do what has to be done. And a lot of time when these situations occur, do we just keep going?
Yeah, we have this. So an indicator of.
Well. So when the sleep, if there is a lack of sleep over a longer period of time and the dedication is away, I would sort of think that, okay, we might be dealing with things that have to do with maybe similarity to a depression. But I wouldn't ask, do you feel depressed? Because, as I said earlier, our feelings are often our challenge. I would try to find out how long it's been going on, what has triggered being stuck in this emotion. And if I think, okay, this is somebody from a clinical perspective who needs to look at it, I would then send them on.
Louise, amazing. We had our time with the worker upstairs that we had an hour and 30 minutes. I think it's past now, so he's really ready to get started, as you maybe heard. But really good insight. You did exceptionally well.
Did I?
Yeah.
And so did you with your English. I'm so proud of you.
Maybe I will have like a, how do you call it, a coach that helps you speak better English.
Oh, a logoped.
Maybe.
As in English, Norwegian.
Yeah, as you can hear, he's really anxious to keep going, but Thank you.
You're
It's been
welcome.
amazing. And hopefully next time we don't have a guy that is almost falling through the ceiling. So
Yeah. No, thank you so much for being asked, and just wish all the best to everybody who's listening.
yeah. So I hope you got great insights, and thank you for watching. And again, thank you, Liz.
Thank you very much.